Okay, so something is happening right now that nobody in mainstream media is connecting the dots on. Young people, Gen Z, millennials, 22 to 35-year-olds are quietly, steadily moving to cities that your parents told you were dead. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Buffalo, Columbus, the so-called Rust Belt, the place that every economics textbook spent the last 40 years writing off. And here's the thing that got me. This isn't a vibe. This isn't aesthetic. This is a full-on financial migration. And the math behind it is so undeniable that I'm genuinely surprised it's not the biggest story in America right now. I'm Franklin. Welcome back to Finance with Franklin. Last week, we mapped every zip code in America to find where a $100,000 salary still feels genuinely wealthy, and Knoxville and Tulsa made the cut. If you missed that one, go watch it after this. It will change how you think about where you live. But today, we're going deeper, because the Rust Belt story isn't just about affordability, it's about a generation that got priced out of the coasts, ran the numbers, and made a calculated bet on cities that everyone else gave up on. And that bet, it's already paying off. Stick around, because by the end of this video, I'm willing to bet you're going to look at a city you've been sleeping on very, very differently. Let me talk to the people who are living this right now. You graduated college. Maybe you've got a decent job, 55K, 65K, maybe even 75K. You're doing everything right, and you still cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment in the city where your job is. In Austin, the average one-bedroom is $1,650 a month. San Francisco, $2,800. New York, $3,200. Miami, $2,400 and climbing. And it's not just rent. Groceries are up, student loans are back. Your entry-level salary hasn't come close to keeping up with what it actually costs to build a life in these places. A Pew Research study found that Gen Z is the first generation in modern American history where a significant portion of young adults cannot afford to live in the city where they work, even with a college degree and a full-time job. That is a genuinely historic shift, and is pushing an entire generation to make a decision that previous generations never had to seriously consider. Do I stay somewhere I can't afford, or do I go somewhere I can actually build something? That $2,100 left over every month, that's not just extra spending money. Over 10 years, invested at a 7% average return, that's $347,000 from the same salary in a different zip code. That is what's driving this migration. And the cities on the receiving end of all these young people, they are transforming fast. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me tell you what this city was 20 years ago and what it is right now, because the gap is wild. In the 1970s, Pittsburgh was synonymous with steel mills, layoffs, and population collapse. The city lost over 50% of its population between 1950 and 2000. 50%! Neighborhoods emptied out. Buildings went dark. Fast forward to 2026, Pittsburgh is home to Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh, two of the top research institutions in the world. Google has a major engineering office there. Uber's autonomous vehicle division was built in Pittsburgh. Amazon, Apple, Bosch all have significant tech operations in the city. The Pittsburgh tech sector now employs over 100,000 people, and the median home price, $225,000. 100,000 tech workers, $225,000 median home price. In San Jose, the heart of Silicon Valley, the median home price is $1.4 million for the same kind of work at the same kind of companies. I need you to sit with that for a second. The neighborhoods that went dark in the 70s, Lawrenceville, East Liberty, Bloomfield, they've been filling back up with coffee shops, record stores, galleries, and breweries. Walkable, affordable, genuinely cool. Pittsburgh has become what Brooklyn was trying to be 15 years ago, before Brooklyn became unaffordable. And the Gen Z people who are moving there right now, they're buying houses,
at 26, at 28, at 30, something that is essentially impossible in New York or San Francisco at those ages and incomes. Home ownership at 28 in Pittsburgh versus renting forever in Brooklyn. Which one builds generational wealth? You already know the answer.
Now look, Pittsburgh gets most of the press, but the same story is playing out across the entire Rust Belt. And if you're only watching Pittsburgh, you're missing the bigger wave. Cleveland, Ohio. Median home price, $189,000. Growing biomedical and healthcare sector anchored by the Cleveland Clinic, one of the top-ranked hospitals in the entire world. The city has invested over $1 billion in downtown revitalization in the last decade, and cost of living sits 17% below the national average. Detroit, Michigan. I know. Hear me out. Detroit's median home price is $85,000 in some neighborhoods. The city has been attracting a wave of young entrepreneurs, artists, and developers specifically because the barrier to entry is so low. You can buy a building in Detroit for what a parking spot costs in Manhattan. Ford and GM are headquartered there. Stellantis, Rocket Mortgage. The corporate infrastructure never left. The affordability just finally caught up to the opportunity. Columbus, Ohio, which gets unfairly overlooked, is actually one of the fastest growing cities in the entire Midwest. Intel just committed $20 billion to build a chip manufacturing complex outside Columbus. $20 billion in Ohio. And the median home price in Columbus is still only $265,000. Here's the pattern. Every one of these cities has a major institutional anchor, a world-class university, a hospital system, or a Fortune 500 headquarters. Those anchors create stable, well-paying jobs. The cost of living around those anchors is still, for now, dramatically below what you'd pay in coastal cities for the same quality of life. The window is open, but these windows don't stay open forever. And that brings me to something I think is the most important part of this entire conversation. Drop a comment right now. I genuinely want to know. Have you ever seriously considered moving to a Rust Belt city, or does the idea still feel like a step backward to you? Tell me where you're at. No judgment, just honest. Here's the thing about gentrification, and I'm using that word deliberately because that's what this is. It always looks the same. First come the artists and the broke creatives because rent is cheap. Then come the coffee shops and the boutique gyms. Then come the young professionals chasing the vibe. Then come the developers who notice the young professionals. Then come the price increases. Then the people who could have gotten in early but didn't are priced out. This cycle is played out in Brooklyn, in Austin, in Denver, in Nashville. Every single one of those cities had a window, a moment where smart early movers got in at the ground floor and built serious equity while everyone else was still calling the city a joke. The Rust Belt is in that window right now. Pittsburgh home values have appreciated nearly 40% in the last 5 years. Columbus is up 38%. Cleveland up 28%. These are not soft markets quietly holding value. These are cities actively rising. But, and this is the key, they are rising from a base so low that the entry price is still completely accessible. That combination, appreciation plus accessibility, that is the wealth-building sweet spot, and it doesn't last. The Gen Z people who are making this move right now aren't running away from something, they're running towards something. They looked at the math, $180 left over per month in Austin versus $2,100 per month in Pittsburgh, and they made the rational call. They're not settling, they're strategizing. And 5 years from now, when the rest of the country finally catches on, the people who moved early are going to have equity, savings, and options, while everyone who waited is going to be saying, I should have bought in Pittsburgh when it was still cheap. Sound familiar? It should, because people said the exact same thing about Austin in 2012. Okay, real talk, because that's what we do here. The Rust Belt is not perfect, and I'd be doing you dirty if I didn't give you the full picture. Winters are genuinely brutal. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, these places get hammered. If you've spent your whole life in a warm climate, that is a real lifestyle adjustment, and you need to factor it in. Some neighborhoods in these cities still carry real economic distress. Vacancy rates in certain Detroit zip codes remain high. Public schools vary wildly depending on the district. If you've got kids or are planning to, you need to research school quality at the neighborhood level, not the city level. And job markets, while growing, are not as deep as New York, LA, or even Austin yet. If you're in a very niche field, you may not find the same density of opportunities. Remote work has changed this significantly, but it's still a real consideration. Here's how I think about it. The Rust Belt is the right move if you are intentional about it. Do your homework, visit before you commit, map out the specific neighborhood, not just the city. Talk to people who already made the jump. The upside is real, but going in eyes wide open is how you actually win. All right, I need the comments section to go off on this one, because I think this topic has more perspectives than almost anything we've covered so far. Here's what I want from you. 1. If you already live in a Rust Belt city, tell me your city and one thing you wished you'd known before you moved there. Real talk only, no tourism board answers. 2. If you're on the fence, tell me what's holding you back. Is it the weather, family, job market, something else? I'm building a follow-up video based on the most common objections, and your answer might literally shape that episode. 3. Do you know a Gen Z or millennial friend who is absolutely grinding in an expensive city right now, paying rent they can barely afford, wondering why they can't get ahead? Send them this video. Not as a lecture, just as a, hey, have you seen this moment? Sometimes that's all it takes to shift the math for someone. Here's what I keep coming back to. Every generation has a moment where the smart money moved somewhere that everyone else thought was crazy. In the 1970s, it was buying in Manhattan when New York was broke and people were fleeing. In the 1990s, it was buying in downtown Austin before the tech boom. In the 2000s, it was buying in Brooklyn before anyone called it cool. The people who made those moves early, they didn't get lucky. They read the data, they ignored the narrative, and they built wealth. Gen Z is doing that right now in Pittsburgh, in Cleveland, in Detroit, in Columbus. The only question is whether you're going to be the person who did it or the person who watched someone else do it and said, I should have moved there when it was still cheap. That's the Finance with Franklin mission every single week. Cut through the noise, run the actual numbers, give you the real picture, not the version someone's trying to sell you. Last week, we showed you 5 cities where $100K salary still makes you genuinely wealthy. This week, we showed you why the smartest young people in the country are quietly betting on the Rust Belt. Next week, we're exposing something that's been hiding in plain sight in one of America's most popular relocation destinations, Tennessee. Everybody talks about how there's no income tax. Nobody talks about the tax that hits you every single time you go to the grocery store, fill up your tank, or buy literally anything. It's called the Tennessee tax, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. It's free, and at this point, if you're 3 videos deep into Finance with Franklin and you still haven't subscribed, that's just leaving value on the table. Franklin out.